Okay, everyone. Hello, I have returned, little ducklings. Alright, everybody. I'm driving back home from a visit back to my hometown. So you know what that means? It's time for another mobile vlog. The occasion this time was I went home for a Easter crawfish boil, and instead of the traditional turkey and dressing, we had barbecued ribs. Good stuff. Celebrating the official end of Lent. Yay! Now, what I wanted to talk about this video specifically, before I talk about my main subject though, I want to just get out a couple things that have happened recently that have caused me to think for a second. I was having a discussion with a friend of mine before I left home over Skype, who I play World of Warcraft with, and we were talking about, see, in the dwarf lore right now, basically, you have these three dwarven clans, the Bronzebeards, the Wildhammer, and the Darkiron. They're all different ethnicities of dwarves. They're all still dwarves. In fact, they all have the same, like, genetic ancestor, or origin. So, the dwarves right now, the current Queen Empress of the Darkiron had a son who is also, by her lineage, the rightful heir to the Bronzebeard throne, and is also the rightful heir to the throne of the Darkirons. And the way he's set up is that the way it works out, as you might imagine if you know anything about succession politics, is this means that a union of the crowns of the Bronzebeard and the Darkiron are imminent. Now, the Bronzebeard and the Darkiron have some long-standing grudges and issues with one another, although the wars have been long past, and, you know, that's neither here nor there. And I was talking, you know, and I said, so basically, this guy is set up to be the universal monarch of the dwarves. He said, yeah, and I said, well, that sounds pretty good, you know, I mean, for the dwarves at least. And he said, well, you know, the Bronzebeards just have this issue of a Darkiron ruling them. The Bronzebeards and Darkirons both have an issue with a half-breed ruling them, you know. And among dwarves, there is certain prejudice that stems from old hatreds and wars, and to be fair, the Darkiron did ally themselves with eldritch powers that may or may not have been bent on world domination, but I mean, that's in the past, and the Darkirons have since joined the same faction as the Bronzebeards, and so they're helping out. So, I mean, there's no real reason why there can't be a union, aside from racial prejudice. So, it occurred to me, being a historian, that I understand that one of the main goals of Europe was to establish a universal monarchy, you know, one crown over Europe. You know, that was the Habsburgs' goal, you know, one crown ruling Europe. And it occurred to me that, you know, much like with the Habsburgs, you know, with the dwarves, racial prejudice could ultimately stop that from happening. And if only they wouldn't, you know, for all we know, you know, Moira's son, the Darkiron Empress, may be a good ruler. You know, he may be a great ruler. But we may never know if, you know, racial prejudice keeps him from claiming what's his rightful throne. And it occurred to me, it's almost impossible to be racist and be a monarch. It is nearly impossible, because as a monarchist, you have to understand the history that even in Europe among white people, you know, prejudices existed that were as virulent as those between African Americans and Caucasian Americans in the United States. So, really, there's no, you know, and monarchies and, you know, united crowns and marriages and the Catholic Church help break down these racial barriers. You know, many neo-pagans talk about a pan-European unity. Pan-European unity would not be possible as a concept if Catholicism and Romanism had not broken down these old racial prejudices that existed between all the various tribes of Europe. If unification had not, of these various tribes, had never happened, mostly under Catholic monarchs. So, you know, that's just something to chew on. And what my main subject today, you know, to talk about is something I mentioned earlier. A friend of mine posted an article on her blog, who, you know, I really get aggravated with Tumblr, because basically it prioritizes new blogs over old ones, and so people I used to follow and get posts from a lot, I don't anymore, because they literally get shoved to oblivion, and I don't like it. I wish they would mix it in a little bit, you know, like, do posts by the chronology in which they've been posted by the people who post them. You know, don't just, you know, friggin' prioritize the new blogs over the old ones. I mean, because what happens then is I don't see posts from people I would otherwise like to see. And I have to go through the tiresome ordeal of actually going to their blog. He posted some examples of legislation, of judicial rulings concerning, pro-life laws, which have really screwed people over. For example, a woman's baby died during a C-section, and she was tried with infantile homicide because of that, because she chose to have a C-section. This woman was a cocaine addict, or had a history of cocaine use when she was pregnant with a child. The child was born with no birth defects, no harm of any kind, but she was charged with distributing drugs to a minor, even though the baby had no birth defects. Everything came up clean, which is a 1 in a million thing in the first place. And just all sorts of little rulings like that, which have really screwed people over. And it made me sit down, and it made me realize, now, if you're in the law profession, or if you're in law school, this isn't directed as an insult to you. If your conscience feels irked, I can't tell you what to do with that. My advice is to act on it. But personally, what I would suggest to you, is just try to change these things. Because I think we can all agree these are negative aspects of the legal profession. And really what I'm talking about, if you haven't figured out, is a complete total reform of the legal system in the United States. Like a universal reform. Because at its root, our judiciary system has several problems. Okay, let me just kind of lay it out for you, in plain speaking, so you can understand. We have a judge who acts as a very limp noodle arbitrator in a courtroom setting, where essentially you have a defense attorney who is paid to, defend his client, and will get paid more if he wins the defense, possibly, or will get more jobs if he's a successful defense lawyer. And then you have prosecutors who their whole job is to make the other guy look guilty. Their whole job is to force someone else into a situation where, is to force the jury, who are a bunch of just random schmucks off the street, who are picked at random, in a lottery pretty much, to rule on a case which will forever determine the fate of someone's life. I mean, this is not a freaking pie eating contest, people. This is serious business. And you're gonna just grab 12, 13 random schmucks off the street, and you're gonna ask them to rule on this? Just not necessarily intelligent people, not necessarily smart people, just people who are, just people. They've seen, if it's a really, sensational court case, they've seen the news, they've probably formed their own opinions. Some of them will not be swayed in their opinions. I mean, it's common friggin' sense. You have a system that's entirely built on two different people who probably don't care about the guilt of the parties involved and just want to win. What a court case, boils down to, what a court trial in America boils down to, is an over-exaggerated debate. That's all it is, where you're trying to convince not just a judge, not even a judge. The judge can only do so many things. The judge does not decide the fate of the person before him. He does not rule guilty or not guilty. The jury does. So, if the jury, rules, that he's not guilty, no matter what the judge thinks, he's not guilty, he's not going to jail, that's basically what it boils down to, and the jury can recommend, abrogate sentence and all this other crap, they can do all this stuff. And it's ludicrous to me. The judiciary system in the United States of America, to me, is absolutely 100% ludicrous. Because, I mean, okay, let's start just with things I would change. Okay, let's start with lawyers, okay? Defense attorneys are a tradition that goes back to ancient Rome and goes even further back, well, not further back, but it also has a origin in the Spanish Inquisition. You had in the Inquisition, what was called the devil's advocate. You had the guy who stood in to defend the accused, to defend the heretic, to defend him against charges of heresy. A intelligent, well-learned scholar of theology who was familiar with the issue and who could articulate how exactly this person was not guilty of heresy, And juries, panels of judges were a thing with the Inquisition. You had multiple judges, multiple canon lawyers who were debating and deciding whether or not this person could be condemned and tried a heretic. And they decided the punishment. I mean, that's where, defense attorneys really come from in the Western world. Catholicism, what a shocker. So much for being repressive megalomaniacs, right? So you have that whole setup, right? I mean, in principle, I don't agree that people should not have a recourse to defense, but I do disagree with it being this profession where people have these high-profile lawyers and these high-profile clients who get paid in the bajillions to make someone look innocent. Do you people really think for half a dadgum second that in these really sensational trials that involve celebrities, that defense attorneys really care if O.J. Simpson murdered his wife or girlfriend or whatever? Do you think they really care whether or not Snoop Dogg is guilty? Do you think they honestly give a shit? No. They want that paper. They want that money because they're going to get paid. They're going to get paid if they win this. They're going to get paid a bonus if they win this, if they win this court trial. They're going to get, women, good cars, yachts. They don't care if their defendants are, guilty or not. They're going to get paid either way. How do you think defense attorneys who literally have to defend, all they do is defend accused murderers, do you think they really care if the guy they're defending is innocent? No, they're going to get paid. Now, there are people who are the exception. I know many of them. I know many lawyers, defense attorneys, who will not take a case if they themselves are not convinced of the innocence of their client. But virtue, as usual, is in the minority over the vulgar, okay? The fact and the vile. The fact is, you have to account for the majority. You can't just account for the minority in situations like this. You can't just say, oh, but this defense attorney, won't take a case he's not convinced the person is innocent. And you can't take that minority, that small chunk, over the larger amount who, even if they won't admit it, just care about the money. Prosecutors, do you think most of them care if, their client is innocent or the person they're attacking is innocent or not? No, they want to get paid. They want that money. They want to get more high-profile clients, high-profile cases. That's what they want. They want to get in with the halls of power. That's what they're after. It's the social climbers Olympics. That's all it is. And it's absolutely shameful. Absolutely, utterly, completely, 100% shameful. And what about these lawyers who are politicians? Lots of politicians become lawyers and vice versa. So what do you do when you have people who are handling a case that is very important to a large section of their constituency, and, they're supposed to rule unbiased? They're supposed to just disregard their constituency when they know if they rule against what their constituency wants, the opposition in an election is going to use that against them? Hell to the no. This is just human nature. This is absolutely 100% human nature. Okay? And you can't you can counter human nature. You can't fix human nature. You can restrain it. You cannot break the human person. Quit acting like you can. You don't. Even in the military, they say break people down and build them back up, okay? The more technical term is They are highlighting aspects of the human nature that you hitherto until now have repressed and buried because you're not someone in a profession where you have to live in hostile environments, follow orders, and kill people. Okay? That's the point I'm trying to make here. You are never, ever, 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 ever going to fix human nature. You can only counter it and prepare for it. All right? You know, you can take the man out of the jungle, you can't take the jungle out of the man. It's that simple. Okay. Now, what else would I fix? Okay? Let's go back to the jury. Okay? A jury is a panel of 12 or 13 people led by a foreman, you know, or whatever, who, you know, is, and now mind you, if I screw anything up, if I don't know what I'm talking about, someone who is a lawyer or something, please correct me. This is how I feel on this subject. This is my understanding of it and how it works. Okay, so if somebody wants to correct me, totally open to it. This is how I feel about the subject, though. The jury is just 10 to 12, 13 schmucks, you know, who have been called in, who don't want to be there most likely to do jury duty, who are there to decide the life and death fate of these people. Now, again, let's go back to the lawyers. The lawyer's job is to convince the people that they're trying to talk to. Their job is to convince them that they want to convince them of their side. You know, if you can convince a large group of people to agree with you, you should become a lawyer pretty much. And you have no moral scruples, you should become a lawyer. If you're just good at convincing people of your argument period, you should become a lawyer. All you have to do is use enough emotional appeal, you know, and, you know, even if the evidence is not in your side, if you just twist enough arms, make enough tears fall, you know, use emotional appeal enough, you're going to win, okay? Unless these people are logical, you know, and have already been pushed against you by the evidence, you're going to win. I've seen it happen, okay? I've seen it happen. We've all heard about court cases or had dealt with the law in a way, you know, which the judicial system screws us, right? Or screws someone we know, or a family member or something, right? Here's what I would do. Going back to the lawyers, replace the lawyers with unpaid state professionals. Okay, unpaid, you know, well, okay, paid, all right, but unhirable agents of the state. Okay, literal agents of the judicial system whose whole job is to present and is to do their thing. That's what they're supposed to do. All right, they're supposed to present the evidence in their favor of their client. They're supposed to, you know, show everything, you know, they're supposed to just literally, you know, they're supposed to literally be, you know, unpaid agents. You know, they don't take on clients, you know, they get paid by the state to do their job. That's it, okay? And, you know, they don't run for political office or anything like that, you know, their whole job is the legal system, understanding the legal system and trying people as such. Okay, now, the jury. Replace the jury with similar professionals in the law industry. Does the case have something to do with medicine? Put a doctor on the board. You know, put a doctor in the jury. Does the case have something to do with traffic laws? Put a frickin' traffic official, you know, on the jury. Does the case have something to do with, you know, vice, and on and on and on. I can give you examples for days. Put professionals on the jury who will understand what's being talked about, who can counter, you know, when the jury decides anything, who can counter when there's any kind of bullshit, you know, like if the lawyer starts to say something, you know, they can just say, you know, the jury meets, you know, okay, well, that's bullshit, you know, because that's not how this works, you know, I've worked with traffic infrastructure for 40 years, this does not happen, it has never happened, it never can or will happen. You know, and they can present this evidence to the judge. That's what the jury does. These professionals present their observations to the judge, and they guide the judge on whether or on what to do. You know, now judges have no personal ruling power anymore. Okay, they are there to keep order in the court and to push the ceremonies along. Okay, that's what they're there for. You know, and to pronounce the sentence. They don't have the power to decide what happens, really. they can only do so much in most cases, all right? Judges, just can only do so much with our current system. I say, put the judge back to being sovereign, okay? He can't abrogate the legal process in any way, shape, or form, but, let him decide what the punishment should be. Let him decide, whether or not this person is guilty ultimately. And a judge should be a well-rounded, well-educated, virtuous, upstanding individual. That should be the standard for any and all judges. We need to start taking people's moral character into account when we hire them for when we give them these kind of positions. People need to care about this sort of stuff, okay? Because when you're making rulings based on life and death, you need to be somebody of upstanding moral character, all right? You can't just be somebody who is, an absolute, just an absolute crook, You got to be somebody who's well-rounded, educated, unbiased, And after the judge has been literally made to examine all the facts, to understand it, they make a ruling, That's how you should do this. You should not have these court cases where literally the mob is deciding what happens, That's what happens, And here's another thing. Quit fucking televising them. Stop televising court trials. Stop it. Quit it. No. End it. It's stupid. That is beyond stupid. Why would you do that? So they can be conscious of the fact that the braying mob is observing at all times, so that they know that if they do something that people don't want, their face is all over the damn world? No. We shouldn't be doing that. We should record these things for archival posterity, and they should be shown after the fact, okay? All these dumb conspiracy theorists accuse me of hiding the truth. Listen, fucksticks, you seriously expect me to believe with all your bullcrap that you are literally smarter than an army of legal government professionals, legal, actual professionals who've done something with their lives besides working a day on Burger King and read fucking Wikipedia all day? You expect me to believe that you are so smart that you can find something that was so complex it slipped past all these other professionals, but it was so flawed that little Joe Sixpack, Joe Sixpack, you don't have a fucking six-pack, you have a beer gut, okay? Or you're some stupid, fucking, neo-fascist who thinks, beating up feminine protesters makes you a tough guy. Oh yeah, real fucking thug over here. Straight fucking Ubermensch. God. Televise these things after the fact. Okay, after the fact. Okay, or if at all, don't televise them at all. Save them for archival purposes. Property of the state. You use them as teaching aids, when you're training new legal professionals, okay? But don't televise them to the mob so they can howl and bray and stamp their feet and be persuaded by whatever biased motherfucker is narrating the events to them and holding the camera. And ultimately will choose what to show and what not to show to the public, okay? You don't need that. That is pure corruption. We don't need that. That is democracy at its worst. Okay? The majority don't always know what's right. Okay? Especially an uninformed, biased majority. Okay? The reason republics and democracies work is because they're made up of intelligent, logical, reasonable people. Okay? They're made up of people with a stake in the political system, with a stake in the well-being of the nation, who respect the system, and who are educated. Okay? You cannot run a republic or a democracy that does not end up burning itself to the ground without those elements. Ask France, ask any country that's been a republic longer than the United States of America has existed. They will tell you the exact same thing unless they are ignorant fuckwits, and they will refuse to admit that the system that has literally turned their country upside down and made it the bitch of foreign authoritarian powers, unless they're totally ignorant of that, and they've gotten used to that sore feeling in their rear cavities, they will admit it to you. That is republicanism and democracy at its worst. At its worst. You need to fix that stuff. Okay? The fact is, certain professions, certain things in life lend themselves to centralized authority. The military, the armed forces, the workplace, emergency rescue professionals. So many things in our democratic society clearly should not be run like a democracy. But it seems to totally miss people that you should not be running a country of all things in such a manner that everyone, from including educated professionals who are the minority to stupid, ignorant people, should be having a say in anything. I understand I've been yelling a lot because I think it's raining really hard and I'm trying to talk over the rain. It's also something I'm very passionate about. And I believe anything you can be passionate about should be talked about, okay? If you can't talk about something without raising your voice, without getting passionate, it should not be discussed. Because it's not worth talking about clearly, okay? That's how I feel about politics in general.